homes are unaffordable, then who is buying them? Now, I've been very much adamant about this topic, but like, you already know how homes are. I'm not gonna lie, anybody in Gen Z is just you're never gonna get a home, bro. You're gonna be living with your parents until like you're 30. I'm gonna be honest. Like, you're not getting a home, you're not moving out, like it's over for you. So I'm very interested in this topic. I'm gonna make it, and I hope y'all do. I truly hope y'all do. I hope I do, bro. Look where I'm at. I'm still home.
The housing market is on its last legs. Every year, more and more people get pushed out of even having the possibility of having their own home.
The United States is going through a housing affordability crisis.
Correct. Now, this surge is causing many Americans to wonder, are we barreling toward a housing market crash?
A whole generation priced out of their future, treading water just to keep their heads above the currents. Meanwhile, the entrenched upper classes and corporate landlords see their investments skyrocket in value as the demand for homes continually outruns the supply. But this presents a perplexing situation, with almost everyone is priced out of
like a home like this, dude. This definitely like has to be 10K a month or something nowadays. Normally this would be what back then, bro. This would be like 2K and a butt nickel. Now it's like $10,000 or something.
Ownership, then what's driving this
Not
rapid increase in housing costs? And even more importantly, if nobody can afford houses, who's going to be buying these homes in the first place?
Like a mill just to buy it?
Maybe this is the reason that for the first time in years, house prices have begun to fall in the UK and quickly.
Oh, really?
We've seen a 4.7% drop over the past year.
Okay, that's a good thing then. The hell, that's a good thing. We need that.
The highest level since 2009. And the US isn't far behind. Prices finally beginning to stagnate after years of back-to-back price hikes. And yet even still, it's almost impossible for anyone to own a home. And with stagnating wages and less ownership, what's going to happen to the housing market? Is this
it's just because money, like people just aren't getting paid more. Or they're getting paid a little bit more, but just not enough.
Beginning of a
for
crash.
A house or something.
Has the market finally hit a breaking point? Or is it just going to recover, reset itself, and happen all over again?
Can I just live in my Minecraft house?
When you're a kid, you get told that there's a set of goals for you to hit, milestones that make the difference between success and failure. Some of them are getting a college degree, buying your first car, getting married and starting a family. But above everything else, you're told that buying your own home is the key to not just surviving, but thriving. It's not just an outdated pitch today, it's a fairy tale, a relic of a time when homes were actually affordable and one salary could support a family. Today, everything's different. Forces like overpopulation, inflation, inequality, and a lack of supply have gathered over generations.
That's the thing. I'm trying to think of it. I never really grew up with a dream of like having a house. I don't really know. I mean, I didn't really have dreams, to be honest. Like, I was just a very sad child. Very sad.
Putting us right where we are
Good
today.
times.
If you take a look at how affordable housing is today, it's the worst it's ever been in decades. We all know this. And despite the fall in prices for the UK, there's still a long way to go before average people will have a shot at home ownership. The average home still goes for a little over £260,000, £45,000 higher than.
And I think that's like £45,000. I think that's. Probably like 400K or something in US dollars.
It was in 2020, a figure that's over $300,000. Now, a lot of this can be chalked up to the 14 times in the past 2 years that the Bank of England has raised interest rates, making it far more expensive to borrow money. This is meant
see, that just goes to show, move out the UK.
Far harsher mortgages and less people willing to buy, dropping prices. Both buyers and sellers are getting squeezed, and real estate moguls like Warren Buffett know a storm is coming, so they're making their move. In the first half of 2023, his firm sold over $20 billion worth of stock.
Damn!
When stocks and real estate are crashing, you can still protect and even grow your savings through diversification. Thousands of my followers alone have been doing so, with one of the most unique, reliable assets in the world, fine art. You see, our sponsors and Masterworks have generated over 40.
I didn't even notice that was a sponsor. That was a good transition.
Every one of them.
You guys can check that out if you guys want.
Buying it won't even begin to catch up. Are more expensive. Potential
Damn,
not always indicative of future performance. In the short term, the UK is facing the potential of a major crash. The post-COVID recovery hasn't gone as planned. Everything got far more expensive as inflation outpaced wages.
Nigga, what?
Recovery hasn't gone as planned. Everything got
Bro, $3.50 for a sandwich, or that's pounds. Is that pounds? Oh my god, so that's like $4 something, almost $5 for that. I mean, I guess it's decently big, but damn.
Far more expensive as
bro, if you don't just sit at home and buy the bread, you can literally buy the ingredients for this and probably equal this price and make like 5 or 10 of these sandwiches.
Inflation outpaced wages. We're now only seeing wages begin to catch up when the interest rate was 0%. During COVID and even before, mortgage deals were much cheaper. Lots of people took advantage and got on the property ladder, buying expensive houses. Every house is expensive today, but still, June of 2021 saw the largest increase in homes bought in the UK by a wide margin, over 165,000. In April of 2023, it was just under 40,000 homes sold, half of what it was just a few months before. And it's a similar picture in the US.
And wait, did that say 2020? That's 2020 houses went up? How are people buying houses? Oh no, completed. Number of completed house sales per month. Okay, so it is houses. Why did it go up in 2020? I thought it would be lower.
50,000 homes sold, half of what it was just a few months before. And it's a similar picture in the US. Over 6 million homes were sold in 2021. It dropped by 1 million in 2020 and is expected to drop a bit over 4 million this year. The average mortgage on the average home with a 20% down payment costs $2,440.
$2,440 for those with a 20% down payment. That's pretty crazy. If you're living alone, you can't live alone in a house single-handedly. You're gonna have to have some roommates, I don't know, girlfriend and boyfriend or something to help you, but you're not paying $2,440 plus all the other shit you gotta pay. There's no way. Interest was very low in 2020. Okay, that's probably why then.
A year now in the US, nearly 1,000.
How many houses did Bill Gates buy? Bro, he probably bought the whole block or something and then just kept it. He kept it and raised the prices.
$200 less than it was 2 years ago.
Motherfuckers need like $25 minimum wage.
Lots of these homeowners got in with comparatively good deals, but those fixed rate deals are coming to an end soon.
It's the next few quarters where you'll see the worst pain for the housing market, because the majority of mortgage borrowers in the UK are on fixed rates, and the Bank of England estimates that only a third of the rate hikes that have already been done have passed through already.
As those mortgages all get renegotiated to today's interest, it's going to leave people with a massive jump in monthly payments that are still just going to the bank for interest. A massive proportion of people won't be able to make the payments, a similar situation to what happened in 2008. Other costs like energy, food and the rest have all gone sky high as well, leaving little room for this. The average American is already over $10,000 in debt through credit cards alone.
10,000 in credit card debt? Okay, I don't know the average American they're talking about. I don't even think that's true. 10,000? Bro, how dumb do you have to be with your money to be 10,000 in credit card debt? Like, when you open a credit, the first thing is you have to reach a $10,000 limit. You have to reach a $10,000 credit limit in general. And that takes some time. You have to build up credit for that to happen. That's like a year or 2 years or something. And then after that, you reach the point where you just throw it all away. They never heard of a debit card? I just give up? That just sounds unrealistic. I don't believe that. I need to see the average American they're talking
Falling
about.
house prices will only make things worse. Without equity, people will be left without the means to downsize and buy a different house. This is just one reason why it might not be a great idea to sell your house right now. In the UK, home prices have dropped for 6 months in a row. The only thing keeping them up has been the rampant inflation. Real drops are as high as 13% once you account for it, with even more price drops looming. Any home you buy might fall in value by 10% or more within a year. If you only had enough for a small deposit under that amount, you'd end up losing far more money than if you just waited or rented. Massive interest rates also aren't helping things, and they aren't going to go away anytime soon. They make it so much more expensive to pay off a mortgage, especially considering the first years of the deal are mostly paying off interest. This means you'd be stuck paying.
Bro, the worst thing about getting like a mortgage is, y'all know mortgage deals are like 15 to 30 years. Like, can you imagine signing a contract right now at your age and then 15 to 30 years? That's like the contract you have. Some of them you can't even leave until that certain point. You have to keep paying that shit off. And I've really been learning more of this, bro, because I've been trying to figure out these things, but it's crazy. Us Americans are too hilariously stupid, sadly.
Paying the banks far more than usual. In a few years, the interest rates will hopefully have cooled down, and there's also the very clear potential of a massive crash right now. Anyone with skin in the game that needs to downsize after the massive hit would find it hard. Everything we just talked about would make it much more costly to get out of a bad deal. It's a cruel circle that tons of people need house prices to fall to be able to afford one, but if they do fall, it will ruin millions of other people's financial plans and stability. It's a result of the shift in views on homes from a necessity and a commodity to an investment. After World War II, when the boomers were being born, buying a home was a lot different. Everything was a lot different, really.
I hate looking at the old prices of homes. Like, you see the old homes, they're like full home, 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, $50,000. You're just buying the shit. You actually just buy it. It's crazy how money's just paper and it means nothing, but we value it so much. They could get a philosophical. I don't know.
To our current stagnation, it was a time of rebirth. In the US, this growth was pushed by the GI Bill. To reward the people who fought in the war and restart the economy, the government provided a massive package of aid to veterans. They subsidized mortgages, paid people a year's worth of
wages. Oh, they definitely don't do that now, bro. You know how many homeless veterans and stuff I be seeing? There's no way they do that anymore.
as if they were
refuse to believe that.
unemployed
There's no
and
way.
gave out low interest loans which
We
people
gotta
could use
value
to
it.
build a new life. It was a reflection of a less specific rebuilding project going on throughout the West. In the UK, over 1.2 million new homes were being built between 1946 and 51. House prices remained steady and low for years. More were being built and mortgages weren't seen as financial investments like they are today. There wasn't an expectation of continued growth offset against interest payments. It was this world of prosperity that the baby boomer generation was born into, and they enjoyed the benefits as they were growing up and buying their own homes. But it couldn't last forever. Over time, the rebuilding frenzy died down. More people were born, more families were created, and more houses were needed. Soon enough, demand and inflation started to outpace the supply, and the prices started going up. By now, it was the 70s, and masses of baby boomers had grown up and bought their own homes. There were more mortgages than ever for the banks to play with, but the current model wasn't working too well.
No wonder
Back
Walter
in those
started
days,
cooking
mortgages
meth.
were often shorter, had higher deposits, and a final lump sum to be paid at the end of the term. There wasn't much room for the banks to make interest, and they had to deal with each mortgage individually. They weren't glamorous or particularly good at making large amounts of money for the banks, but one man could see their true potential for profit, and his name was Louis Ranieri. Louis was born in New York in 1947 to an obscure, relatively unknown family. After dropping out of college, his first job in the banking industry was unremarkable. Starting in the mailroom at a firm called Solomon Brothers, Lewis spent a decade slowly working his way up the corporate
you wonder
ladder.
why crime
Early in
rate
his career, though,
increases?
his bosses noticed his skills with maths and his ability to see profit where others couldn't, along with his uncanny salesmanship. And so as he went up the totem pole, Lewis eventually found himself in a leading role at the mortgages department in his bank. It would have been a dead end for most, but Lewis's biggest strength was his ability to innovate, and it was here that he would come up with his career-defining idea: the mortgage-backed security. It worked by combining a whole set of mortgages from various homeowners into one asset, which would pay out the interest payments made to whoever owned it. Lewis had single-handedly turned mortgages into a profit bonanza. Using his sales techniques and the help of a banker,
Bro, that just shows the butterfly effect. So everything would be perfectly fine if it wasn't for this nigga. Hey, fuck this nigga. This is an old video, is he dead?
called Larry Fink, their bank sold them by the truckload to other banks and pension funds across the country. And this was one of the most important shifts in the last century. Lewis had turned what was once a boring commodity designed to let people have homes into something his banker friends could exploit to make billions.
You might not know who he is, but he changed your life more than Michael Jordan, the iPod, and YouTube put together. You see, Lewis didn't know it yet, but he'd already changed banking forever with one simple idea.
The mortgage-backed
Turning on
security.
his
You got
downfall.
your average person's mortgage. Fixed rate, 30 years. Boring, safe, small payoff, right? When you have thousands of them all bundled together, suddenly the yield goes up, but the risk is still small because, well, they're mortgages. And who the hell doesn't pay their mortgage?
And it was these mortgage-backed securities that would eventually lead to the '08 crash. But for
Oh my
now, it was
God.
incredible for the banks. The mortgage-backed security market was worth $150 billion by 1986.
Nigga going to
just
hell?
a few years after Lewis.
Bro, he really, like, you know, for a fact, everybody was there like, oh my God. Like, I wonder what their reaction was, realizing everybody making like billions of dollars off of doing this. 150 billion.
This bright idea.
God
But before
damn.
that happened, a few other changes in the housing market led to the disaster we're watching unfold today. As the boomers got their homes and became the largest voting bloc in history, they started favoring laws that would keep house prices high. Politicians obliged, happy to make more money themselves. Housing subsidies ended, the GI Bill never saw modern renewal, and bureaucratic red tape surrounding housing got a whole lot worse. Once the boomers had gotten inside the market, they made sure it was incredibly difficult for anyone else to do the same. It led to the labyrinth maze of zoning codes, planning permission, and arbitrary limits that we know today. The flow of new houses dried up as construction companies had to get permit after permit just to start on a new development. They added years of legal fees, waiting, and paperwork to the process, so even though it was in the public's interest for more houses to be built, it just wasn't profitable for developers. And today, resistance to any new housing developments that aren't more suburban wasteland has gotten so bad that there are protests by pensioners whenever a car park gets redeveloped into more housing. Like this protest in the summer of 2023 in London, where old
the hell?
homeowners gathered to keep
No to tower block blight. Public parking reduced by 65%. A small shopping center in Edward turned into Manhattan by... Wait, I'm confused. Why are they mad? Am I missing something? GI Bill don't do shit. Am I missing something?
their investments safe from a new set of affordable apartments which could replace their beloved car park. Their local MP is right behind them, of course. And all of this resulted in the current view of housing as an investment, something for Wall Street to tamper with, for people to sit on their whole lives, a way to build wealth rather than a basic necessity
No,
for
housing is looked at it, bro. Any person in real estate, like, makes so much money, bro. That's why everybody wants to get into real estate, because you just make stupid type of money. Harder to park? I mean, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something with it. But if that's just the issue, then let's build another parking lot, my nigga. I don't know.
Survival. This kind of
All
thinking is
old-ass people?
completely toxic to society. The 2008 crisis was the result of decades of this building up, and Louis Ranieri's mortgage bonds only got worse and more risky. Banks made so much money off of them that they interfered with the rating agencies, which determined how risky they were. Corruption and collusion meant incredibly risky, awful mortgages were backed up and sold as safe investments. They invested trillions into these mortgage-backed securities, and eventually it all blew up. Millions were left without homes, and the economy went into a nosedive that it still was struggling to recover from. You would expect that such a massive failure of the whole system would ignite a complete rethinking of how we treat homes. But you'd be wrong. The banks got bailed out with taxpayer money, and they pretty much got off scot-free. If anything, the banks have gotten even more reckless and predatory. Firms like Blackstone, Goldman Sachs, and Pretium Partners have bought hundreds of thousands of single-family homes. You don't need me to tell you how awful this is.
And that makes sense. That makes sense, like, why all the homes, I already know about that. Like, all the banks, bro, literally all of them just buy the shit. That's why it's so expensive, and then they just make the prices. Cheapest houses over here are like 200K. That's the thing, like, nobody, I don't even know a single person that ever just buys a house. Like, they basically, they force you to get a mortgage so they can get, like, money from, I don't know, like, the loan or interest rate or whatever the
Aside from the practical effects of increasing demand and artificially raising house prices, it's symbolic of how institutional investors have literally taken control of people's homes. Once they're on the books for these corporate investors, they hand over the management to monolithic letting management companies. These corporate landlords then put the bare minimum into keeping the homes maintained, as well as skipping on anything else that impacts their bottom line. If tenants complain or the banks see more money in it, they get evicted. The 2022 prediction by one asset manager states that if patterns continue as they are, institutional investors could own 40% of the single-family rental homes on the market by 20.
No, that's actually scary. That's very scary. Like, that's the worst thing you could have, a monopoly on homes, like one company. It's like, imagine an Amazon but for homes. That would actually be so scary. They will hike that shit up to, like, it would be like 500 or $1 million a house and nobody's buying it.
30. Silicon Valley
really
has
shows
also
they
been
care
looking
about
for
money.
a way to solve the housing market.
In Puerto Rico, if you're rich, you don't gotta pay for shit which affects the poor. Damn.
Opendoor, a company that uses algorithms and a tech-driven instant access business model to try and undercut estate agents. Their basic plan is to build up large amounts of liquid assets and use these to buy homes from people looking to sell. They use algorithms and AI to figure out how much it's worth, buy it for a bit less than that, and then sell it on after a few months. The problem with their plan is that you can't just throw some algorithms, buzzwords, and investor money at the housing market to make money. You still need to deal with in-person viewings, repair and renovation costs, and all the ground stuff to make that happen. And the financial data has been troubling from Opendoor and their competitors, as their stock price has been falling for a straight year.
Shares of Opendoor cratering today after reporting a steep second quarter revenue decline and a pretty weak outlook,
causing them to lose $1 billion in the past year alone. It's clear proof that their business model just doesn't work. Even with all the hype of getting some big names in Silicon Valley to bankroll the operation, it hasn't panned out.
So that just should show them they should probably, like, lower the prices and shit, right? Surely they didn't. No, they didn't.
Instead, it's just another example of how Silicon Valley's miracle solutions often end up as massive pump and dump schemes to make the founders richer when they inevitably sell the company. The rental market is one side of the story that we haven't covered yet. Everything that we've talked about
point
has
I'm
led to
realizing
insane
life
rents.
is a scam.
The higher rents go, the less likely it is for people to be able to afford a deposit. If you're paying 50% of your income to some landlord or some Wall Street bank, it cripples your ability to save up anything, and it's a complete drain on the economy. That's not an exaggeration for some, as Londoners are paying over 50% of their income to rent on average.
Holy shit, 50%?
That's an exaggeration.
And I'm trying to think, if you just can't live alone. Like, that's not living alone. If you live in an apartment, most likely, especially when you're younger, you probably live with a roommate or somebody else. 50%? That's probably accurate. Honestly, really thinking of it, that's probably accurate, because that's the majority of where your money is going. And, like, if you have a car, the other one is probably 30% to that, and gas and insurance and whatever. And like 20% is probably maybe for you.
For some, as Londoners are paying over 50% of their income to rent on average. London renters also paid around £3,000 more than homeowners for what is essentially a much worse deal. On average across the UK, renters pay around 34% of their income on average to housing costs, nearly 4 times as much as the 9% that the average homeowner pays. Now sure, homeowners are normally richer than renters, so the figure is skewed by that fact, but it's still a clear example of how the West is changing. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. What's really destroying the renting market though is the chronic housing shortage. The majority
When's the content house with Sala, Ryan, Lana happening? Bro, I would love that. I would love that to happen. Shit, ask them. I would love that.
Local councils in the UK haven't built a single home in the past 5 years, despite over 1 million people on the waiting list nationwide. Anyone who's been in the unfortunate position of needing to rent a place in a big city knows how awful it can be. In New York, hour-long waits and long
Yeah.
lines of viewers are the norm. Even the most
Is that in the apartment?
overpriced, dilapidated
They got a bathroom line to the
apartment.
apartment? Yeah, no, absolutely not. Living in New York, dude, the first thing you should decide to do if you want to be smart about your money is move out of New York, okay?
Elsewhere, it can take months to find a place, with renters
I've
often
seen
being
bigger
forced out for
lines.
the first 6 months up front, or even the whole year just to get a chance.
6 months? So what is that, like 10,000?
Add in reference checks and the evasive questions, and it's more like a job interview now. All of this, and people get much smaller, run-down living spaces.
Dude, this is exactly like, this is the average New York apartment. This is basically the average New York apartment. Y'all see this room I'm in? This room is bigger than that apartment, by the way.
You just can't build a good life when your kitchen, your bedroom, and
What
your living
is
room
this?
are all the same room. It's a trap that more and more people can't get out of. In the UK, the renting population
I
is
can live with that. I mean, okay, but y'all are thinking in the
same room.
future.
It's
Let's
a
say if you want a family or something.
trap
You're
that
not
more-
living with a family here. Okay, but maybe when you're younger and college age, you don't really care. Yeah, I guess. But even then, I need space. This is too claustrophobic.
more and more people can't get out of.
10,000 a
In the UK,
month
the
for
renting
that?
population has doubled in the past 20 years. And if you're stuck renting, then you're always stuck paying someone else's mortgage, building their wealth and life instead of your own. However predatory mortgages might get, at least there's the eventual promise that you'll actually own the home. Although that's after you've paid years of interest to the bank, and you probably won't actually own the land. You just lease it. It's a trend that surpasses the housing crisis, the movement away from individual ownership. In the World Economic Forum's infamous predictions for 2030, they claim that you will own nothing and be happy with it. This is the key.
Who is this? Bro, I don't care who these people are. No. What do you mean you own nothing and you'll be happy?
And it's
Like, bro, do they think this is... What is this, a fairy tale or something? Like, yeah, I can own nothing, man. I can own nothing. I can just live in the forest with fairylands and trees and mystical shit. What do they think this is?
big part of why institutional investors are scrambling to get in on the rental market by buying up family homes. They know what's coming because they're constantly trying to create it. The ingredients for it are already here. You don't need to own your own car, you can just use Uber. If you need to buy anything, a drone can deliver to your house. You don't need a cashier, you can use a machine.
But to be fair, the amount you would pay in an Uber, like, that's just a dumb mentality, bro. If you're like, oh, I don't need a car, I can order Ubers every day. The amount you pay will add up to the amount of money you could have spent on a car or something.
You never actually need to leave, other than going to the other tiny cubicle where you can spend the other half of your life in artificially lighted
I'll be happy
work.
having to pay
Might as well
nothing.
get your money's worth for that $3,000 a month studio apartment anyway. You don't need to actually buy anything either. You can just use credit to pay it out over the course of years. You don't need to own a home, you'll be much happier renting for the rest of your life. Even media and entertainment operate off these rules now. Subscription systems and monthly fees are the new norm for everything. It spreads so far that printers and other appliances now have subscription fees. Subscriptions that lock
BMW starts selling heated seat subscriptions for $18 a month. Oh my god. That's just rough. 18 a month for my ass to be hot? Bro, if you want your ass to be hot, just like, I don't know, just rub it or some shit before getting in the car.
people out of using the thing they bought if they stop paying them. Obviously, most people aren't happy about this. It's a major cause for the underlying resentments you see in people today. But what choice do they have? Take the car example. Most people in America live in places with little to no public transport. Even your own two legs are mostly useless because everything's so spread out and built for cars.
That's
Uber
true.
and ride sharing is becoming the only choice. That's despite the fact that it's far
Fuck
more
BMW.
expensive in the long run anyway. It's soon becoming a world
what I
where
said.
corporations own everything. It lets them extract far more money out of each person. If you're a company and you sell something for $100, obviously you only get $100. But if people rent it though for just $5 a month, they're already paying more in less than 2 years. Turning every transaction into debt simply makes them more money and gives them more power. Ownership is being eroded everywhere you look.
BMW
Even your own
drivers are
privacy
ass.
is gone, renamed as data and stolen by these same companies to make the adverts slightly more annoying and effective. It's all part of the modern feudal system that they're trying to create. But most people can't see the bigger picture here. They just see the instant access we now have to every kind of instant pleasure you could possibly think of, and they consider it progress. At our current pace, we may well hit the World Economic Forum's predictions of 2030. Often it's framed as a necessary change in order to stop climate change.
I highly doubt that. There's no way people are gonna be like, oh man, I have nothing and I love life. Nigga, when you homeless on the street, it's 20 degrees at night in the cold winter and rats are trying to chop up your toes. I don't think so.
The responsibility shifted to regular people, pressuring them
You gotta
to
be
use
really
paper
stupid.
straws, take shorter showers, and generally live worse lives. It's a
Okay, no. One thing I do need.
pressuring them to
One
use
thing
paper
I do need is
straws,
my
take
shower
short-
time. Cut back your shower time this many minutes to conserve water. No. Don't tell me what to do with my life. That's the one thing I get. The amount of times the shower I get, that's the one thing I ever get. fulfills humanity's potential.
Water showers and generally live worse lives. It's a psychological tactic to shift the blame without even acknowledging it happened. The real damage is done by corporations and governments. Of all the garbage in the ocean, most comes from rivers, and 93% of that plastic comes from just 10 rivers. 8 of them are in Asia, the Yangtze being the largest polluter and the other 2 are in Africa. As for carbon
Oh my god.
8 of them are in Asia, the Yangtze being
Bro,
the
this
largest polluter and the
that's
other
whole tsunami.
2 are in Africa.
I don't know what river or ocean this is, but whatever it is, I don't want to drink out of it. Even if it's the most pure water ever. They purified it like 1,000 times. I don't want to drink out of it.
As for carbon emissions, 71% of it comes
There's
from
a
just
whole
100
island
of the
made of
largest
trash.
companies. The top 20 are responsible for a third of all the carbon emissions. And so the housing crisis is just the tip of the iceberg. And we can only hope that things will get better eventually. If anything is true though, is that everything is
Nah, I would low-key be mad though if I got like an amazing, nice house or whatever. I was able to actually afford one.
We can only hope
and have some homeless people camped out with tents. I'll probably be mad.
that things will get better eventually. If anything is true
That's
though,
more
is
plastic
that
than
everything
models
is
here.
always changing. Things can't go on forever like this. The resentment and anger will eventually reach a breaking point. One thing the World Economic Forum won't be right about is that people will be happy with this new normal. That's at least something we can count on. With all this
I
said
don't know
though,
about that.
what's gonna happen next? For now, the housing market looks like it's on the brink. With far less people selling, movement has been propped up at the upper end through cash purchases of million-dollar homes in capital cities. There definitely isn't anything shady at all about these anonymous buyers.
Right. You know, I've been paying attention to these companies that are buying up affordable housing.
Yeah.
If you
Like
pay attention-
BlackRock and Zillow.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is scary.
That's scary because if they can move the entire country into renting, like
That's right.
nobody can own it.
Well, that's what they want to do.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
They
If
don't
you
want
get-
anyone to own anything.
If you get a giant majority of the population that are just renters, that don't ever own property, they never have their own real home.
Yeah.
And then you make sure that you control their wage because you have massive corporations, whether it's Target or
Right.
Amazon or whatever. And
That is kind of true though. Like if you don't ever own, like if you're just renting forever, because nobody ever buys a house anymore. Like nobody's able to afford like a $400,000 house off rip, especially working. Nobody can buy one. Then you're just gonna be giving them money forever. Like you're almost never gonna pay that off.
they limit the amount
BlackRock
of
runs the
possible
world?
growth you have within a company.
Yeah. And there was that article, you'll own nothing
What
and
the is BlackRock? All you need to know is they run the world.
be happy
Yeah,
in
so I've seen
2030.
that is wild.
Rents have been going up as well, as they have been for years now, and increased mortgage costs have put a dent in landlords' bank accounts of course, but not enough to compensate for the massive price hikes we see today. The result is a whole generation locked out of the entire system and exploited for what little money they do have. It's a big reason why so many people are forced to just stay at home, well into their 20s and often much longer. Without rich friends to house share with, or very rich parents that can subsidize deposits, there isn't any other choice. In the UK over the past decade, over 620,000 more young people are living with their parents compared to 10 years ago. It's not just a problem caused by the housing crisis, though obviously it does carry a lot of the blame. The pandemic wrecked so many people's social lives and confidence that it's keeping people at home years after. It also put the brakes on tons of people's plans, throwing a wrench into any hopes they might have had of moving out. Men have been more affected than women, making up 2/3 of the young adults still at home.
Over 2/3 of young Irish adults still living with parents. Why this specific fucking article, bro? Should have said the world or something.
Often a comparison is drawn between other cultures, where children often stay at home for years after graduating or entering the workforce. But this can't be a reason to say the situation isn't a disaster on a societal scale. It should be a choice that people can make, not something they're forced into. Then there are those people who aren't lucky enough to even have the option. They're stuck in a world of private rentals, housing shares with strangers, and exorbitant rents. Nobody can truly and accurately predict the long-term future of the housing market. But what you can do is look at the historical precedents of these kinds of situations. When millions of young people get shut out from success, it undermines their reason for participating in society. If you know that hard work won't pay off, what's the point? Historically, a large population of young men and women completely disenfranchised isn't a predictor for success. They can only take so much before they either give up or look for a different, revolutionary way to make a good life for themselves. We're already seeing the first of these.
Wait, what did that article say?
Look for a different,
Create a livable future, why we need young people now and always. But the thing is, bro, the problem is like with the boomers or the older generation and shit, it's like they don't care, bro. If they already have the money or they already have this and that, why are they gonna care about the younger generations? It's like they're like, well, damn, I'm gone in like 10 or 20 years. I don't really care. I'm worrying about myself. I mean, I'm sure there are older people that definitely care, but I don't know. At least the people that run shit in the world, they don't care.
Revolutionary way to make a good life for themselves. We're already seeing the first of these things happening all the time, and it won't be long before we see the second.
Wow. Yeah, that was a good video. And the boomers have all the jobs that pay good money. Yeah, pretty much, bro. Like, how many of y'all have y'all seen somebody that has like a college degree or something and they're working at a Walmart? There's nothing wrong with working at a Walmart. Like I said, get your bag. But like, bro, if you have a full-on degree in something crazy and you want to get the job in that, that's not going to be the spot you want. You want to be making money in that degree or whatever you're doing, So yeah, in conclusion, yeah, everybody's gonna be living with their parents until like 35. It's over. It's over. And yeah, if you're watching this on the tube, join the Discord.